Hello and welcome to the Fifth Down Huddle. This is episode 19 of the offseason. Before we get started, I'm going to ask you to check out the Instagram page for everything NFL, the YouTube page for daily NFL videos, game recaps of every game this season, and full podcasts, the Spotify page for full podcasts, and the Twitter page for live game updates and reactions, as well as pre-game predictions. So, let's huddle up. Now, first off, this Thursday, I'm going to put a few time labels up right now in order to make it easier for you to get to my week 1 predictions as well as the other topics of this video, because I know some of you may have clicked onto this podcast for that reason in particular, and for those on Spotify, they'll be in the episode description. For our first topic, though, I'm going to go over an important question for Jaguars fans, and one I'm genuinely interested in. Is Gardner Minshew the answer for the Jags? Is he the franchise quarterback that they want to go with into the foreseeable future? Now, in the wake of a massive let-go on top-tier players on the Jags roster, it almost seems as though they are in all-out rebuild mode and are attempting to tank for the number 1 pick. Yet, in my eyes, they aren't exactly tanking in the traditional sense of the word. Granted, the team has traded away veterans like Campbell and A.J. Boye, but along with releasing younger players like Ronnie Harrison and Leonard Fournette, they also have 16 rookies on their roster. So overall, it's not a complete rebuild. The team isn't trying to lose games this year. Instead, the team is trying their best to win the Super Bowl in the way they have best deemed fit, which is not to go for it this year, but to go for it in the long run. Yet, not a complete rebuild, because a complete rebuild usually takes maybe 2 to 3, possibly 3 to 4 years for you to get into that playoff shape at best. So they don't want to wait 2 to 3 to 4 years to get to the Super Bowl. They want it to be a 1 to 2 years here to get everything together and turn this team back into a playoff team. They were close. They were close not too long ago when the Patriots beat them in the AFC Championship to face the Eagles. They were close. They were real close. The Patriots had to come back in that game. And ever since then, they've had a lot of roster turnover, and they're just trying their best to fix it. But it's not a complete rebuild. They're not restarting this year. So, like I said, instead of throwing up a long contested pass on 3rd and 25, Minshew and the Jags are punting on 3rd down. A surprise? Yes. But they're going to take the safe route and trust that they can come back on the next drive after their defense gets a solid stop and sets them up in better field position. That's kind of the analogy I like to use to explain it, but put more simply, no, the Jags are not tanking. Instead, they're partaking in a short-term rebuild. They know they don't need to click the reset button on their team, but they also know that they need to click the reset button on the direction they're headed. That is, what the Jags are trying to do this season is point themselves in the best direction possible to win a Super Bowl. Now, back to the original question, as the Jags reset their path for the future, is Minshew still a part of said path? Let's take a look as to who Minshew is and how he has affected the Jags team, both positively and negatively, all the way back to the draft. Now, Minshew played at Northwest Mississippi Community College in 2015, leading the team to the NJCAA National Football Championship with totals of 3,228 yards and a 60.8 completion percentage. In 2016, Minshew transferred to Carolina University, in which he played in 7 games starting 2 that year. The next season, in 2017, he split time with Thomas Sirk at East Carolina and showcased his impressive ceiling with over 350 yards in 3 consecutive games late in the season. Minshew ultimately finished that season with just over 2,000 passing yards and 16 touchdowns. And that year, Minshew also received his bachelor's degree. The next fall, in 2018, Minshew enrolled at Washington State as a graduate student, ultimately leading Washington State to a record 11 wins in his first season. Throughout the season, Minshew broke several school records, including a 7-touchdown performance against Arizona, a 78.9% completion rate in a win over Eastern Washington, and Minshew led the FBS in pass completions with 433, passing yards per game with 367, and finished second in yards with 4,477 and finished top 5 in touchdowns with 38. Minshew received the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award as the nation's top senior or fourth-year quarterback and was named Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year in 2018. After his productive college career, Minshew was taken 178th overall in the 6th round by the Jags in the 2019 NFL Draft, and he failed to win the starting job over Nick Foles last season, but was forced into the starting role when Nick Foles suffered a shoulder injury early in the season and was removed from the game. That day, Minshew made history. He threw for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick with an 88% pass completion percentage, the highest of any player in recorded NFL history in their debut. Not to mention the franchise record for the highest completion percentage by any quarterback in a Jags uniform. The next handful of games were impressive at the least, as Minshew would throw for over 200 yards in the next 8 games as a rookie. Even with Minshew's impressive play despite a few lows, Foles was renamed the starting quarterback upon his return from the injury report. Come Week 13 against the Bucs, though, Minshew got a second chance as Foles was benched due to poor play. Following a mediocre performance by Minshew that day, head coach Doug Marrone announced that Minshew would be the starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. In Week 15, Minshew led a 2-possession comeback with 2 passing touchdowns within the last 5 minutes, bringing the Jags back from a 16-3 deficit to win the game 20-16. And by the end of the season, Minshew's totals came out as follows: 14 total games, 3,271 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, along with 67 carries for 344 rushing yards, all in his rookie season. So, following Minshew's rookie season, is he ready to become the franchise man for the Jags? If you compare the first-year numbers for Minshew with other all-time greats such as Tom Brady, who while in his second year was also forced into the starting role due to Drew Bledsoe's injury that season, things get a little crazy. That first year, Brady played in 15 games and totaled just 2,843 yards, less than Minshew, 18 touchdowns, less than Minshew, and along with this, an ugly yet solid 12 interceptions for a first-time starter, which were twice as many as Minshew threw. Now, looking at it from this angle, Minshew seems like a diamond in the rough. One less year of development, a worse team, and yet far better numbers in all categories. The only difference is that one of them won a Super Bowl that season and ended up being the greatest quarterback in NFL history, while the other missed the playoffs. Now, I know comparing him to Brady is a bit of a stretch, but hey, compare those rookie numbers to any other rookie in recent history and tell me Minshew doesn't look like a franchise guy. If anything, I'd put Minshew on the same level as Drew Lock after year 1. Both quarterbacks impressed when they were on the field, and I believe both are going to be great franchise quarterbacks. So overall, yes, Minshew is the answer for the Jags. They just need a bit more help around him. But they have that core in place. Minshew can help lead that team into the playoffs as long as they build a team around him rather than build a team to replace him. And I hope they make that right decision. Next up today, I'm going to discuss the Bengals, and more in particular, Joe Burrow. I know that last week we kind of covered whether or not Joe Burrow is going to be a bust, but this week I want to pin down just how well Joe Burrow and the Bengals will collectively perform this upcoming season. When you look towards last season, the 2-14 record is ugly, not to mention the bottom 12th ranked offense and defense at 22 and 25, and the Bengals also ranked 30th in points scored. So overall, the Bengals disappointed last season, and no matter how low our expectations were during the previous season, that's bad. Andy Dalton played poorly, with just a total of 3,494 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, not to mention an ugly 59.5 completion percentage. On the ground, though, Joe Mixon was surprisingly productive, given the Bengals had the 30th ranked O-line last year, and he totaled over 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground, along with 250 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. A productive back on a very unproductive team, to say the least. And Tyler Boyd also impressed. He seemed to be the only consistent receiving threat with just over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. And the Bengals will have A.J. Green this upcoming season. Remember, he was out last year due to an injury the entire season. Now, although many question whether he'll be the same in his return as he was before last season, if he can ever get back to prime A.J. Green, it'll be nice for Joe Burrow to have a veteran receiver in the number 1 or 2 spot, whichever one they want to put A.J. Green in. Now, the Bengals have made big defensive moves this offseason, bringing in defensive tackle DJ Reader on a $53 million contract, along with Trey Waynes, the former Vikings corner, on a $42 million contract. Along with this, the Bengals added corner Mackenzie Alexander on a one-year deal, along with Josh Bynes to fill a much-needed void at the linebacking position. Definitely not a great improvement, but there was a void there that needed something. The Bengals also added safety Von Bell on a 3-year deal, continuing to bolster their secondary. So overall, the Bengals spent a whopping $145 million total to bolster their team in free agency, which was majority spent on their defense. If anything, Cincinnati's defense is bound to perform better this upcoming season, and granted, it won't be a top 10 D, but even a small amount of talent can improve one of the league's worst defenses. And I'd expect the Bengals defense to land right in the high teens, around 19th in the league. Not a drastic jump from the season prior, but a meaningful one. And this jump will aid Burrow in feeling a bit more comfortable taking more risks as a rookie. And in order to develop quickly as a rookie, which is exactly what the Bengals need, Burrow needs to take risks early on. Having a little more confidence in your defense, putting up a late game stop, can definitely help you with that. Now, outside of those free agency additions, the team added T. Higgins in the second round of the draft to aid Burrow in the passing game. So having a receiving core with A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, both of which were 1,000-yard receivers in each of their previous seasons, along with a solid rookie in T. Higgins and competition from Auden Tate, could drastically improve Burrow's chances of impressing in his rookie year. He doesn't have a terrible receiving core. Now, as I said in my Is Joe Burrow a Bust video, he has a new head coach to work with. An unproven one, granted, but a new coach nonetheless. After 16 years of Marvin Lewis and not a single Super Bowl appearance, the Bengals are hoping to find a future in Zach Taylor. And if Joe Burrow proves to work well with him, the Bengals could very well impress. Now, overall, the Bengals aren't going to do insanely well this season. They're still a bad team. They don't have a great O-line. They have a solid running back, but they don't have a great O-line, especially for the passing game with a rookie quarterback in Joe Burrow. If he gets beat up, that is going to severely hurt his development, and he could possibly get injured, which would hurt it even more. You look at the defense, it was worse last season. It was one of the worst, and granted, they got some additions, but the defense still isn't really going to be there in terms of being a defense that you can count on to win you games. So it's kind of going to fall on Burrow, and if everything goes perfectly, if the defense improves as much as they can, and if Joe Burrow works well with this offense and with Zach Taylor, I'd have their ceiling at 7-9, and their floor at 3-13. There's a lot of question marks surrounding this revamped roster, but if Zach Taylor can effectively bring this offense together around Joe Burrow, and if he can do the same on defense, then we could very well see the Bengals impress and hit their ceiling of 7-9. I know, it's a low ceiling, but the Bengals are a low team. There's no way I see the Bengals making the playoffs unless Joe Burrow advances 2 years in his development without a preseason, which I gotta tell you is very unlikely. I'm sorry, Bengals fans, but I think you can vouch for me on this, that the Bengals will not make the playoffs this season, and their ceiling isn't even making the playoffs. It's lower than that. It's a 7-9 record, which is good for the Bengals after a 2-14 season, and especially good for the Bengals with a rookie quarterback. So if everything goes well, 7-9. But if things go as expected, more around 4-12, 5-11, 3-13. You know, it's a rookie quarterback. It's a revamped team. It's a young head coach. They still got to put things together. It could take a good 2 years until the Bengals are ready to make the playoffs. Next up, we've got my week 1 predictions. I don't love predictions because no matter who you pick, someone is going to get pissed off. But in the end, I'm going to go with whoever has the best chance to win overall. So let's get right into this. First off, the Chiefs play the Texans tonight, and man, what a matchup for the first game of the season. But I'm going to call that one as one of the best Thursday night football games in recent history. With a 450-yard or more performance by Patrick Mahomes, the game will be a back-and-forth battle with lots of offensive and defensive highlights. And down 32-29 with just over a minute to go in the fourth, Patrick Mahomes will lead the Chiefs on a last-minute drive to kick a field goal and send the game into OT. Once in OT, the Chiefs will win the toss and will drive down the field easily. And one thing I've noticed, and that I'd like all of you to remember, is that the Texans still have a solid top 2 receivers in Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller. It's not a bad receiving core. And coupled with a great quarterback, I believe this offense will put up a fair fight against what isn't the league's best defense in the Chiefs. No matter the score, it's going to be a shootout, and the Chiefs will come out on top. Chiefs win 38-32 in what will be a brilliant Thursday night matchup. Next up, we've got the Bills against the Jets. Given it's a division rivalry and the Jets held the Bills to under 13 points in both 2019 matchups, winning one of them, the Jets will put up a fight. Yet the Bills are at home. Granted, it's not too far of an away game, but Bills Mafia can be brutal to play against, and Sam Darnold is going to struggle against it. And the Jets defense is going to struggle against it without Jamal Adams. Count on the Bills to come out on top relatively easily with a projected score of 20-17. It's going to, again, the Jets are going to put up a fight, but I think the Bills defense is going to come in clutch in the fourth quarter and really not allow a score within the last 10 minutes of that game. Next up, we've got the Patriots against the Dolphins, another AFC East matchup. Now, granted, the Dolphins bested the Patriots in Foxborough last season, but I don't think it'll happen again. The two teams that the Dolphins played last year and the Patriots were completely different, one of which being the Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon-led Patriots offense, the other of which being the N'Keal Harry and Philip Dorsett Patriots. It's in Foxborough, though, and if long-standing history of this matchup says anything, it's that the Patriots will win this game. Expect the Patriots to come out on top 27-14, relying on the run game. I know, surprising. The Patriots didn't have a great run game last year, but I'll bet you they are going to rely on it this year. They released Lamar Miller just recently. I think it was just yesterday they released Lamar Miller. But they've got Sony Michel, first-round running back. They've got James White. They've got Rex Burkhead. They've got Damian Harris. This run game is going to be solid in week 1. And Cam Newton is also going to scramble a bit. They're going to have some really fancy run schemes. I know Josh McDaniels is going to have fun with Cam Newton having a little mobility. He hasn't had mobility in a long time. And he's going to use that to put up a great run performance on the ground in week 1 against the Dolphins. Again, winning 27-14. And next up, we've got the Browns against the Ravens. Last season, the Browns bested the Ravens early in Baltimore. Yet, once the Lamar Jackson train gained momentum further into the season, the Ravens easily beat the Browns 31-15. Now, trust me, the Browns will put up a fight, but Lamar is now truly settled into the quarterback spot with Baltimore. I think it's fair to say that he is far more effective today than he was in last year's early matchup. The Ravens are going to pull away in the fourth quarter in this one after a relatively low-scoring first half, and they're going to win it 28-13. Next up, the Colts against the Jags. The Colts are simply a better team than the Jags, so they'll inevitably come out on top, but it won't be easy. Minshew's going to put up a fight. Again, Minshew is the answer for the Jags. He's going to put up a fight. They're not trying to lose games here, and will make this one a game to watch. Phillip Rivers will come in clutch late in the fourth, creating a road to a 24-19 win for the Colts. Phillip Rivers is back, he's ready to go, and he is going to lead the Colts to a late game win to restore faith in himself through the Colts fan base. The next game, arguably the least exciting, just even on the front cover of it without looking into what the result will be, Eagles against the Washington football team. I honestly don't expect Washington to amount to much of anything this season, and I'll take the Eagles all day in this one. Expect this game to be the least exciting of the bunch, leading to a 34-10 win for the Eagles. I think Dwayne Haskins is going to throw a touchdown here. I don't think the touchdown is going to be on the ground, but the Washington football team's, I hate saying that. Couldn't they have come up with, because you can't really call them the Washingtons. That just doesn't sound right. You can call them Washington, but then it's going to, the Eagles against Washington. I guess you can say that. So, back to what I was saying, Washington's defense is not good, and the Eagles are going to take great advantage of that. Carson Wentz is going to throw well. The ground game is also going to be very good for the Eagles in week 1, and they're going to win 34-10 over Washington. I want to say the Washingtons, but again, you just got to say Washington. But anyways, Bears against the Lions. Stafford will bring a fight, but so will Trubisky. Trubisky is fighting for a future in the NFL. I said that on Monday, And while Stafford is fighting to pull himself back into the spotlight of a top-tier quarterback, Trubisky's fighting for his future. He's going to put up a great fight here. Expect this game to be a rough one, low scoring and personal. It's going to be tough offensively. The Bears' defense is going to hold, but so is Detroit's. Ultimately, the Bears will come out on top due to their defensive capabilities and Trubisky's ability to still play solid with over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Expect the Bears to win 17-13. Next up, a matchup made in heaven. We've loved this one for a long time, and we're going to love it again this week. Packers against the Vikings. Now, this one always seems to be a fun matchup to watch, and I don't think that'll change this Sunday. The Vikings lost Stephon Diggs, granted, and that will hurt their offensive production, but in the end, even with the loss, the Vikings will put up a solid fight and will win the game 27-20. This is one of those games that I could see folding either way, but if I had to put my money on it, I'd take an upset in the Week 1 division rivalry. Again, Kirk Cousins has something to prove still. He still has, even though he made the NFC Championship last year, he still has something to prove, and he's going to try his absolute best to prove it here, and I'm putting my money on the fact that he is going to start proving it in Week 1, even with the loss of Diggs. The next matchup, Seahawks against the Falcons. The Seahawks seem to have their game together while the Falcons don't. While I can't truly say if the Falcons will be back to where they once were this season, I'll bet money on the team that has consistently been a tough team to beat for many recent years. Expect the Seahawks to come out on top with a great performance from Russell Wilson. But Matt Ryan and that Falcons offense is going to do solid. Julio Jones is going to have 2 touchdowns. Again, the Falcons offense is going to put up a fight. It's going to be another one of those close games, yet you kind of know who's going to come out on top, just the better team overall. The Seahawks win 29-23. The next matchup, the Raiders against the Panthers. Another tough matchup, but the Panthers will surprise many. The Panthers aren't expected to win, and Teddy's going to upset this Week 1 matchup. And Christian McCaffrey will come out on day 1 and impress. He'll put up a 100-yard performance on the ground along with at least 50 through the air. Expect him to have 2 touchdowns, and the Panthers will rely on Christian's production to lead them to a win in Week 1, 20-14. It's going to be a great matchup to watch. Again, it's kind of one of those upset games. It's not going to be a super high-scoring game, but it's still going to be a nice, rough one to watch. We're going to see some great running back play by both Josh Jacobs and Christian McCaffrey. Both of them will score at least once. And again, Panthers win 20-14. The next matchup, Chargers against the Bengals. Now, this is another game in which I could be severely wrong, but if I had to bet money on rookie quarterbacks making a Week 1 start against a solid pass rush, a solid D-line, I'd say the odds are in favor of the Chargers. Expect Burrow to struggle. I mean, it's Week 1. He's never played an NFL snap, not even in the preseason. He hasn't had a lot of time to get used to this offense, and that's going to hurt him. Expect the Chargers D to capitalize on a strong pass rush in Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. It's going to be tough for Joe Burrow to play against, and the Chargers are going to win handedly, 31-13. This one could, of all the games, I'd bet on this one to be the shutout game. I could see the Chargers holding them to 0 points. Joe Burrow is going to struggle in Week 1. That's a given. Burrow's going to struggle, but I could very well see him throwing a touchdown this game, which is why I gave them the 13 points. Next matchup, Cardinals against the 49ers. Another fun matchup as the revamped Cardinals offense will face easily the toughest matchup of the season in Week 1, and they'll struggle to score points early, but the 49ers defense will let up at least 2 touchdowns in the fourth, leading to a 27-17 win for the 49ers. Bucks against the Saints is the next matchup, and Brady has something to prove, and has arguably the best offense in the league to prove it with. Brady will throw well on day 1 with over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and will show that he still has it. Don't doubt him. He's got Gronk. He's got Evans. He's got Goodwin. He's got O.J. Howard. He's got Leonard Fournette. He's got LaShawn McCoy. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And the Bucs are going to win. He's also got Scotty Miller, who's a solid slot receiver. You know Brady loves his slot receivers. Scotty Miller is also going to surprise this season. Overall, the Bucs are going to score twice on the ground, though. In the red zone, it's going to be all ground game for the Bucs, and it's going to lead to a 34-24 win in what will be an extremely fun matchup to watch in Week 1. The next matchup, Cowboys against the Rams. The Rams are trying to correct their path following missing the playoffs in 2019, and the Cowboys are attempting to do the same. This will be a game won in the trenches, with Zeke rushing for over 100 yards in Week 1, and expected to be a thriller in prime time this Sunday night. But the Cowboys will ultimately come out on top 27-25. In the first Monday Night Football matchup, the Steelers will best the Giants as Big Ben is on a comeback run and will attempt to bring the Steelers back to the playoffs following a miss in 2019. Expect the Giants and Danny Dimes to put up a fight, though, with an overall score of 23-14. It's going to be a fun one to watch. It's Monday Night Football. It's always fun to watch. And again, Danny Dimes, I think Danny Dimes is going to impress. I think it's possible that they put up 20 or more. But just out of benefit of the doubt, I'm going to give that to the Steelers' defense, which was really solid last year and didn't get much worse. In fact, you could argue they got better. That Steelers' defense is going to bring it in Week 1, and I'm betting on that Steelers' defense to hold the Giants to 14 or less. The next Monday Night Football game, the last game of Week 1, it's going to be sad, but then we have football 2 days later, so not too sad. The Titans will face the Broncos to end off Week 1, and the Broncos will end it off with an upset. I know, crazy. Titans, Derrick Henry, that offense, and I think the Broncos are going to upset them here. The Titans are still recovering from blowing an AFC Championship lead, and will need a week or two to get settled back into a playoff team. They didn't have the preseason. Expect Drew Lock to show up on Monday, throwing for over 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's going to be a thriller. Going to be a close game. Drew Lock, again, is going to put up a fight here. Granted, so are the Titans here. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a thriller. It could be one of those games decided by a field goal at the end, but I believe in Drew Lock here. I know I'm jumping on the Broncos hype train already, but I believe in Drew Lock. I believe in the offense he has down there in Denver. And I believe in the idea that Drew Lock and Company, that receiving core and that run package in Phillip Lindsay, I believe they're going to make something happen this year. I believe they're going to make the playoffs in the 6th or 7th seed, and that's going to start in Week 1 with beating a playoff team in the Tennessee Titans. Again, Drew Lock is ready to go. So is this Denver offense, and that Denver defense is also going to put up a solid fight. They're going to get a few stops. They're going to hold Derrick Henry to under 100 yards rushing. I know, crazy, but they're going to do it. Derrick Henry is going to have 2 touchdowns on the ground, but they're going to hold him to under 100 yards total, and they're going to win it 27-20, a one-possession game decided in the 4th quarter, but a fun one nonetheless. Now, as we reach the end of the episode here, I wanted to let you guys know that on the videos here, if you're on Spotify, head over to YouTube, head over to Twitter, head over to Instagram. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about. Because whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do it for you and I'll do my best at it. Whether it's more game predictions, I plan to do these every Thursday morning in order to kind of give you guys that insight to what I think is going to happen that weekend. But if you guys want me to do something else, I think I'm still going to do this no matter what. But if you guys want me to do more things, if you want me to turn this into an hour on Thursday and an hour on Monday, hour and a half, whatever you guys want, I will do my absolute best to deliver it to you. Just let me know. The comments are open. The DMs are open. The Twitter page is open. Send me a tweet at me. Whatever you need to do, tell me what you guys need. Tell me what you guys want to hear from me. Whether it's player analysis, whether it's game film analysis. Whatever you guys need, just tell me and I will cover it. But either way, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. You can click out right now. I'm going to do a little bit of self-promoting here. But again, please check out the Instagram page for everything NFL, whether it's game updates, game results, game highlights, anything you can expect NFL-wise is going to be there. The biggest news, I'm going to give you my thoughts, my reactions. The biggest fantasy tips, I'm going to give you what I think and what I know. On YouTube, daily NFL videos, game recaps of every game this season. And now, the game recaps might take a day or two after the game to get out, meaning the latest they'll probably get out is Wednesday, just because I don't just want to do a 30-second thing. I want to make it at least 4 to 5 minutes, which is going to take a little bit because I need to watch every game of the season. I need to take notes on it in order to know what to talk about. But, yeah, game recaps on YouTube. And full podcasts. I like posting the full podcast to YouTube, and I also like posting the separate talking points in the video because I know some of you guys don't want to listen to me talk for 30 minutes. You want to hear when I'm talking about your team, when I'm talking about your player. So I know that posting those kind of separate sections on YouTube by themselves will help. But outside of that, check out Spotify for the full podcast, Twitter for live game updates and reactions, as well as pregame predictions. Thank you for huddling up with me. It's been great. And again, I'll see you Monday at the end of week 1, probably Monday morning, right before that Monday night matchup. I'll see you then. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Fifth Down Huddle. I will see you Monday.